If you just stop for a second, look around, think about how different life is now compared to, say, 200 years ago. Back then, it was mostly hard labor, short lives. Now, we've got smartphones, we fly across the world, we have vaccines that save millions. This huge leap in wealth, in lifespan. It's not just a small step, it's a total transformation. And the real question, the deep one, why? Why did humanity suddenly shift from centuries of, well, pretty much stagnation to this explosive, sustained economic growth? That puzzle, that's what the winners of the 2025 Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences tackled.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And this prize, technically the prize of the Bank of Sweden in the economic sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel, it's not just for some dusty academic theory. It's really about the big ideas that explain how the world gets richer, how we escape that old cycle of, famine and boom bust that dominated history. And this year, the focus is crystal clear. Innovation, that's the engine. It's what lifted billions out of desperate poverty.
Right. And we're doing a deep dive today into the work of the three people who really cracked this code: Joel Mokyr, Philippe Aghion, and Peter Howitt. The Royal Swedish Academy recognized them for explaining how innovation drives economic growth. Mokyr, who's more of the historian here, he gets half the prize money. And then Aghion and Howitt, the economists who work together, they share the other half.
Exactly. So for you listening, what we want to do is break this down into sort of two key parts. Think of it like a two-stage rocket for growth. Stage one is the ignition. That's Mokyr's part, the historical conditions, the societal stuff that had to be in place first. Then stage two is the engine itself, the sustained thrust. That's the economic mechanism Aghion and Howitt figured out.
Okay, let's start with Mokyr then, because his work really changes how you view history, doesn't it? Before the Industrial Revolution, we had inventions, sure, watermills, cathedrals, even the printing press, amazing things, but they didn't lead to lasting system-wide growth. It was like flashes of brilliance then. Back to the grind. Why didn't those earlier innovations spark a continuous fire?
Well, what Mokyr found, he's a historian based at Northwestern and in Tel Aviv, is that there was this crucial missing piece, the scientific why. People back then knew that things worked, a lever, a gear, whatever.
Yeah.
But they didn't grasp the underlying physics or chemistry. The source material had a great analogy for this. It's like knowing a wheel spins, but having zero clue about rotational dynamics.
Sure.
Or like cooking by just throwing things in without a real recipe, without that deep sort of codified understanding. You can't reliably improve something, you can't scale it up, you can't easily apply it somewhere else.
Ah, okay. So they could build it, but they couldn't systematically improve it or adapt it because they didn't know the fundamental principles. But Mokyr also argued it wasn't just about the science itself, right? There was something deeper needed in society. His book, A Culture of Growth, talks about an open society.
Precisely. That's the core insight. Technology needs the right culture to actually take root and flourish. And the historical evidence he points to is this amazing thing called the 17th century European Republic of Letters. This wasn't a country. It was like this informal network of thinkers, Newton, Boyle, Voltaire, people like that across borders. They shared ideas constantly. They debated everything openly. They valued curiosity way more than just sticking to tradition or listening to authority.
Wow, like a giant borderless brainstorming session.
Kind of. It was like a cultural Big Bang. And this environment, this focus on sharing and codifying knowledge, it led to this incredible explosion, like a tenfold increase in patents and scientific papers that built the foundation, the understanding, the why for all the big stuff that came later, steam engines, electricity, you name it. That cultural shift is the real turning point for growth.
Okay, so Mokyr explains the cultural ignition, valuing curiosity, sharing knowledge. But how did that translate into actual sustained economic wealth? I mean, science is great, but it doesn't automatically create jobs and industries. That's where Aghion and Howitt come in, right? They provided the economic engine model.
Exactly. They picked up on this idea of creative destruction, a term Joseph Schumpeter coined way back in 1942. Everyone sort of talked about it, but it was a bit vague. What Aghion and Howitt did in their huge 1992 paper in Econometrica was put rigorous math behind it. They showed how this messy, chaotic process actually fuels growth.
Creative destruction, it sounds, well, destructive. Like progress requires things to be torn down.
Because it does. In their model, innovation isn't this gentle additive thing, it's a fight. When a new innovation arrives, think the iPhone, it doesn't just create a new market. It actively destroys the market for the old thing like the BlackBerry, or even older, the landline phone. The economy needs this constant replacement, this churning of the old by the new, to get what they call virtuous growth. It's like an economic snake shedding its skin over and over.
It's kind of amazing they could build a mathematical model for something that sounds so chaotic. I read they actually met arguing about coffee at Harvard in the 80s.
Yeah, shows you where big ideas can start. But their work was crucial because modeling this process gave us actual tools for thinking about policy. For instance, their models predict, and this is backed up by World Bank data, that economies where it's easier for people and money to move from dying industries to new ones, like the U.S. generally, those economies tend to grow about 1% to 2% faster each year compared to countries with really rigid labor markets where it's hard to switch jobs or reinvest capital.
1 to 2% a year. That adds up massively over time. So if their model holds, what stops this beneficial cycle? What jams up the creative destruction engine?
Well, the main thing is resistance, either from powerful existing companies, the incumbents who lobby hard to protect their old businesses, or from regulations that are maybe too strict and accidentally shield those old ways of doing things. If the old guard successfully blocks the new entrants, you just get stagnation. The system needs that freedom for resources for people to flow away from the things being destroyed toward the things being created.
Okay, let's try and tie this together. We've got Moyer showing us the need for this open, curious culture, the prerequisite. And then Aghion and Howitt map out the mechanism, this engine of creative destruction, this constant conflict. The Nobel Academy's message seems pretty stark then. You need both. You need the openness and you need to be willing to manage the chaos and conflict that comes with change. Otherwise, you risk just grinding to a halt like in the past.
Absolutely. And it's not just history or theory. You see it right now. Look at the green energy transition, lithium batteries, solar panels. That's the creative part. But they are explicitly designed to destroy the demand for coal, for oil, for gasoline engines. That's the destruction. But that destruction then fuels creation elsewhere, new jobs in battery factories, solar installation, grid management. Without this framework, how else do you explain something like, say, Tesla potentially being valued way higher than a giant established automaker like Ford? Investors are betting on that future destructive potential.
Right. So the lesson is growth isn't some magical force. It's this volatile mix. You need the science, the curiosity Mokyr talked about, but also the societal willingness to handle the messy, chaotic change Aghion and Howitt described. But that chaos, it obviously causes problems, real hardship for people. So what are the big roadblocks we need to watch out for if we want to keep this engine running?
That's the critical question now. Because innovation creates wealth, yes, but it also creates huge disruption, inequality, real challenges. The sources highlight 4 main hurdles we really have to navigate.
Okay, let's take them one by one. First up, the one you mentioned, incumbent resistance, the big guys fighting back.
Right. Established companies, whether it's big tech, old energy firms, whatever, they naturally want to protect their position. They'll lobby, they'll try to block new technologies that threaten them. So if they're pushing back, what's the policy answer? Is it just piling on new rules?
You'd think maybe more regulation to force them to change.
Actually, the research flowing from this Nobel-winning work points more towards strong anti-monopoly action. Competition is the key. There are studies, like in the American Economic Review, showing that when you effectively break up monopolies or prevent markets from becoming too concentrated, innovation actually increases by like 20%. Competition basically forces that creative destruction cycle to happen, whether the incumbents like it or not.
20%. Wow. Okay, second challenge, the cultural one. What if societies lose that openness? Mokyr identified as crucial.
That's the cultural gap. If countries become closed off, if they stifle critical thinking or scientific curiosity, well, you lose that essential ingredient Mokyr talked about. The solution there isn't really economic policy, it's education. Big investment in global STEM education, fostering that culture of inquiry, especially in developing nations, is vital. Otherwise, you risk creating a kind of digital dark age for some parts of the world.
Makes sense. Then the third, and this feels very immediate, inequality. Creative destruction sounds great in theory, but it means real people lose jobs. Communities get hollowed out.
That's the sharp end of it, absolutely. And politically, it's maybe the toughest part. To make the system work, to allow for that destruction and creation, you need strong social safety nets. Things like robust unemployment support, maybe even experimenting with universal basic income or UBI. The data we have, like from UBI trials in Scandinavia, actually show they increased labor mobility by about 15%. It suggests people are more willing to take risks, retrain, move to a new industry, if they know there's a cushion there during that disruptive phase.
Okay, safety nets to manage the human cost. And finally, the big one looming over everything right now, AI, artificial intelligence. This looks like the next massive wave of creative destruction.
For sure. AI is poised to disrupt Well, almost everything, including many white-collar jobs this time. But it also brings up new ethical questions, questions about control that maybe previous technologies didn't quite pose in the same way. Guion actually wrote about this in his 2021 book, The Power of Creative Destruction. The key seems to be finding a balance with regulation. We need rules to guide AI's development ethically, to manage its societal impact, but we have to be really careful not to write rules that accidentally stifle the fundamental innovation itself, because that innovation is what future growth depends on. It's about harnessing the destruction, not stopping it.
So quite a journey. Mokir, Egion, and Howitt have really given us this incredible framework for understanding how modern prosperity happened and maybe how we keep it going.
They really have. It's a blueprint, in a way. It shows that economic progress isn't preordained. It depends entirely on our ability to create new knowledge, apply it, and then, crucially, manage the social upheaval that follows. Their legacy is this powerful reminder. Societies need to cultivate curiosity, embrace the chaos of change, and keep innovating, or risk falling behind. The wealth we have isn't guaranteed.
Yeah. Mulgera tells us, be curious, talk to each other. Agion and Howitt tell us, okay, now that curiosity paid off, here's how to deal with the fallout and keep the engine running. So listening to all this, the final question really comes back to you. When you think about these challenges, especially powerful companies resisting change and this massive AI wave coming with, how ready are you for the next phase of creative destruction? What's the biggest hurdle you see in your own work, your own industry, to keeping things open and dynamic? That's the provocative thought this Nobel Prize really pushes us all to consider. Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you on the next one.